In the spring of 2025, the design community got excited about leaks suggesting Apple was planning a big change for iOS 19. This wasn't just a small update. These new images showed Apple moving back towards realistic designs, but not like before. The flat, simple icons we've known since iOS 7 were gone. Now everything looked like clear glass with real-looking edges and soft lighting. At first, these icons didn't seem to bring back old-school skeuomorphism. There wasn't leather or wood. But when you looked again, something felt off. These designs looked even more real, almost like objects you could hold, more than even the first iOS designs. It felt like Apple took ideas from Vision OS, but pushed them further, creating something even more real. But here's what's strange. Vision OS seems to have quietly disappeared from Apple's plans. Why would Apple choose this super realistic glass style for iOS now? Were they just looking back fondly, or was Apple planning a big change in their design thinking? The last big update happened with iOS 14 in 2020, meant to connect the look across all Apple devices, a goal still unfinished 5 years later. With these leaks, Apple might finally be changing how we see interfaces again. Welcome back, skeuomorphism, but not like before. To fully grasp this shift, we need to revisit the moment when digital design was a warm handshake between our physical and digital worlds. Remember the feeling of flipping through iBooks with its wooden shelves, or tapping buttons that felt like real plastic? These touches made technology approachable, like coming home to something familiar. But why did Apple ever abandon such comforting realism? To understand, let's ask how all this began. Realistic digital interfaces emerged as a bridge from physical reality to a new digital world. Early smartphone designs borrowed heavily from physical objects: leather-bound calendars, vinyl-like music players, and calculators with clickable buttons. These visual metaphors helped ease people into digital interactions, making unfamiliar screens intuitive and inviting. This style later earned the name skeuomorphism. Then in 2013, Apple shocked designers everywhere by abandoning this comforting realism. With iOS 7, the detailed textures and depth vanished overnight, replaced by flatness and vibrant simplicity. Apple deliberately disrupted user expectations, forcing rapid adaptation. Apple wasn't just following trends, they set them. When Apple introduced flat design, the entire tech world paid attention. Back then, as a design director at an R&D company, I vividly remember passionately arguing to my CEO why we had to redesign our websites immediately to reflect Apple's bold new direction. It was a risky, costly decision, but it felt vital. Even today, 12 years later, that moment feels crucial. You can still see this radical simplicity reflected in my studio's designs: abstract, vibrant, unapologetically digital. Even as current trends drift toward glassy, translucent aesthetics inspired by Apple's latest Vision OS. But with clarity came sacrifice. Minimalism clarified interfaces but sacrificed emotional depth. Those earlier apps felt like tiny museums of familiar sensations. A calculator app resembled physical buttons, and a music player reminded you of a real stereo. Flat design simplified usability, but something important was lost: emotional warmth and comfort. Part of why we nostalgically remember these realistic designs is the human connection they created. They weren't just functional, they evoked a sense of memory and warmth. This emotional bond is why people still talk fondly about the old Apple. But did Apple abandon realism forever, or was something deeper brewing? Apple has always set the pace for design trends. Back in the early 2010s, Android often adopted visual trends pioneered by Apple. Designers worldwide initially showcased exciting concepts on platforms like Dribbble, eventually integrating these ideas into custom Android builds, and later mainstream Android. Now, experts see Apple's potential return to realism as significant. Influential commentators like John Gruber from Daring Fireball note that Apple's recent apps clearly signal an imminent design shift. Designer Parker Ortolani describes Apple's current experiments as big, beautiful cards, translucent elements, and bold visuals, interpreting them as intentional steps towards a significant overhaul. Yet caution exists. UX specialists stress Apple must ensure this fresh style improves actual usability, not just visual appeal. There's valid concern that Apple's designers may assume intuitive interactions when users might find them confusing. This evolution brings to mind philosopher Francis Fukuyama's famous and incorrect claim about the end of history. Fukuyama believed major historical shifts ended in the 90s. Yet today we're witnessing Europe's largest conflict since World War II, proving history never really ends. Similarly, after iOS 7, user interface design seemed complete. Minimalism took over, and while it was efficient, design became predictable and uninspiring. Everyone awaited a new digital revolution, perhaps VR or AR, but it never quite emerged. Then, quietly, AI arrived. AI is now shaping entirely new interactions with information, demanding new design patterns. At the same time, Apple is potentially unifying its AR and smartphone interfaces around realism, perhaps even aligning with these AI-driven changes. But recent moves, like Apple's cautious withdrawal of certain AI-focused materials, hint at uncertainty. This feels exciting, yet risky, a delicate turning point for both Apple and digital design. So UI didn't truly die, it evolved quietly, awaiting the right technological shift. That moment seems to be unfolding right now. As technology evolves, we remain emotionally tied to our devices. Apple's new direction may not just be a nostalgic throwback, but a meaningful evolution that reconnects function with feeling. If you found this insightful, leave a like and comment which insight resonated most. And to dive deeper into Apple's evolving design philosophy, watch my next video, Apple's controversial design decline. Is the golden era truly over? Thank you for watching.